Hello friends, today we're going to be taking a U-boat out in World War II. It is the 1st of January 1941. We've just rearmed our boat, we refueled, the crew are shipshape, and we're just talking to the leading officer who is giving us our orders for our patrols today. So if we come on over, this is our choice as captain. We can patrol here. Apparently difficulty low. By the way, I've got all the difficulty and realism settings turned all the way up with the one exception of AI. We've got easy, medium and hard. I choose medium for the AI because if you put it on hard, they seem to have this supernatural ability to detect where you are from 10 miles away, even though you're deep under the sea, not making a sound. And so, yeah. That said, so we've got a low difficulty here, quite a ways away. We're operating out of La Rochelle, France. Now, why would this one then be medium? It seems to be the same area. Is it based on... Oh, I see. It wants us... this one wants us to patrol 2,000. This one wants us to patrol an extra 250 kilometers. Now, taking a look at this... oh, and we also need to sink 7,000 tons instead of 4,000. So, same place, just more stuff to sink. What about the difficult one? Well, that's right off the coast of Scotland and Northern Ireland there, and they want us to sink 10,000 tons. I'll tell you what, we'll go for the middle one today, and we'll see how that goes. And so let's select. They reckon foggy weather expected in the area, but if we do manage to pull it off, they're going to reward us with Hans Opperman, so an additional officer. Not that we have any more room for officers on the boat, but it just makes research back at base a little easier. It looks like with the distances that we require to go, the fuel may be an issue. And based on that, our engineer, I'm going to give him an assistant. In fact, if we give him 2 assistants, we can see it's going to reduce fuel consumption by about 30%. You know, you got more guys in the engine room listening out to stuff, tweaking stuff. And in any case, let's set sail. Engines ahead, all half. And of course, yes, it will steer it automatically, but we'll elect to go manual. Rudder 1 degrees starboard. And we'll make our way towards the locks here. And having safely pulled away from the coast, the docks here. The coast, what are you talking about? The docks. I think we can go full speed ahead now. Yeah, so I'm aiming for these, and there we see the first gates opening for us, for our anticipation. Rudder 5 degrees starboard. And now 5 degrees to port. 7 will do. Maybe 15. As soon as that nose starts swinging. There she comes. Right, rudder amidships. That'll do. 1 degrees port will do. Engines do shut down when we come here. This is a new addition. This spotlight that's shining onto the area. Engines have cut out. And the gate behind us shuts. With that, they can start raising or lowering the water. And it looks like we're being lowered down today. Yeah, the sea level definitely going down. And with that complete gate opening, engines coming on. Oh, that was close. That was close. Pay more attention next time, Captain. Stop with the cinematics and pay attention. That really was close. And yeah, the damage is counted. All right, well, I'll bring you back once we're out to sea en route. Bringing you back here just 2 hours later. It's 10:15 in the evening, 1st of January 1941, and already the French coastline is out of sight. Is of course dark, making it a little harder to see as well. Conditions are good. Starry night. If I leave the camera still, maybe you can just about make out some stars up there in the sky. What I did want to show you, just for quick familiarization purposes, if we zoom out a little bit and take a look on the map here, the darker areas here we can see currently under control of the Third Reich, or at least one of their allies. That, of course, includes Mussolini running England, what am I talking about? Running Italy, and we've got Vichy France down in the southern half of France, of course. Germany insisting on the entire western coastline of France, making use of all the ports here, of course, over the Bay of Biscay, giving us access to the Atlantic, and that's where we're rolling out of. Spain, Portugal remaining neutral, Southern Ireland also at this stage remaining neutral, and of course Switzerland as well. So again, slight anomalies when it comes to, you know, oh, he's mad and he wants to take over everything, but there's this tiny country that can offer no resistance. Oh, well, we'll just leave him be. You know, I mean, Spy Central, what, right? I mean, if you were the Allies, all of this is taken over, but hang on a minute. We've got a neutral country. I mean, you're going to put your spies there, aren't you? I don't get it. Of course, the Reich's also got Norway over here, but not Sweden. Sweden, at least for now, also remaining with the neutral. And, of course, Soviet Union at this point not yet embroiled in the war. We're still a few months away from that. Greece belonging to the Allies. There was war raging down here. Turkey as well remaining neutral at this point. Bulgaria also. We see that the Reich through Romania does have access already to the Black Sea. Of course, a lot of oil as well in Romania, because Germany had none. Their only oil came from synthesizing coal and whatnot. But it worked surprisingly well considering that's what they were doing. Then, of course, Egypt and so on here, Northern Africa. We've got Rommel playing cat and mouse with the tanks and so on between the British and the Germans here. It was actually the Mussolini who started it. Of course, he was wanting to go into Ethiopia and so on, but then bit off a little more than he could chew and, required assistance. Rommel was sent in and hence got his nickname, the Desert Fox. Did an awful lot with not very much and won the respect of the British for doing so. And some real interesting stories. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I've really enjoyed reading a couple of different books from, various memoirs from people on both sides of the engagements that went down in Northern Africa. And it indeed did sound like, if you can ever think of this as war being a gentlemanly conduct, well, if ever there was an example of it, it was in the battles there in Northern Africa. And that then should bring everybody up to speed here. 1st of January 1941, of course, the map will evolve as the time does too. And so, with that done, I'll bring you back when we've got something to report. Not the best of weather we've ever seen. Stormy. And somewhere on the Atlantic rides through the U-boat. And I best sing so the copyright police don't get me, because we've got the music on to keep the crew happy. And it's singing this kind of song with the tune that goes like this, and the copyright police will get me because they already did for a tune that lasted 0.6 seconds. Very true. 0.62 seconds of a song got caught on one of my videos, and I got a copyright strike for it. 2 days into the patrol now. See a new moon rising there over the western horizon, and our crew have nothing to report. 48 hours, quite a long time to be at sea with nothing to do. Starting to get a little restless as the boat continues on its course, making its way to its assigned patrol sector. Little bit of celebratory music there. We'll tell our guys to stop. It's a couple of minutes past midnight on the 6th of January, and we have finally reached our patrol sector. Though at least, we're basically there. If we take a look here on the map view, there we go, inside the patrol sector. Here we see it, this little green box, ways away. And it's taken us a a long time to get here. So, what's that about? Yeah, full 5 days. So we'll send the message back to HQ announcing our arrival. The first thing that we're going to do is come to a full stop. We'll dive down as soon as this message has been sent, and we'll have a listen. At least our radio officer is wide awake. Actually, most of the officers not doing too bad. This guy here is Weber. He's tired, but everybody else is doing okay. This guy's having a kip as well, Hoffman. But certainly could be called upon if we needed. And everybody else are doing pretty good. Right, so the message has gone and we've come to a full stop. And for the purposes of the stream, we do have a little bit of additional lighting there. Otherwise, you'd just see a black screen, which would be very boring. All right, then, dive down. Let's do a routine check with the hydrophone. So they're going to dunk down to 50 meters where the sea is much calmer. And we'll have to see if our new hydrophone is any good. Schuster, our radio guy, is going to be using it. We'll certainly give him an assistant. And showing here real time just how long it takes to dive a U-boat. Not an instantaneous thing from the guy giving the order until the boat going down, depending on who you listen to, was something that took anywhere from 35 to 40 seconds on a very well-trained crew. There were so many things that had to be done in a certain order, in a certain sequence, and if a valve was done incorrectly or forgotten, not just could something go wrong in the sense of it dived too far, but you know, the boat could go down in the wrong angle, leaving the propeller stuck out in the air. And that had happened, you know, when I was reading on, you know, more than one occasion, when the haste to get down, somebody had set a valve wrong or got one of something out of order, and the boat was basically left dangling helplessly for minutes while they were desperately trying to get underneath. And of course, if it was a false alarm, they'd live to tell the tale. If, you know, if there really was somebody after them. Anyway, enough waffle. Apparently our guy has already picked something up on his hydrophone, and there we see it, a solitary contact. He reckons somewhere over there. We'll put a little ring around him so we don't lose his approximate position. And we'll get the ruler out, and he reckons around 65 kilometers. Of course, give or take, there is a large area of uncertainty there. So it could be anywhere from about 50 to about 80 kilometers, something like that. So we'll certainly lay in a course. I don't see why we should linger down here anymore. We'll check this guy out, see what's up, sink him if that is the appropriate course of action. And then if whether there is or it isn't, we'll dive down at that point. So that's the plan. So I'm going to surface the boat, lay in a course, and I'll bring you back when we're a little nearer. In pursuit of this first contact, we're giving our engines max flank speed. There we see the U-boat crossing through in the moonlight. It's as fast as it can go. And of course, now with the snorkels fitted, we can make use of our snorkel and dive down to periscope depth. And as long as the seas are relatively calm, and they certainly seem to be that, we'll be able to keep A, the diesels running, and B, a fresh supply of oxygen for the crew. And so two very important things. And not only does that allow us to get closer without being seen, it also allows us to make use of our hydrophone underwater while keeping the diesels running. Granted, it vastly reduces the range, but it still has got a greater range than what we can see above the surface, and certainly that's the case at night. There have been about 30 or 40 minutes that have passed since you were last with us. In that time at flank speed, we've managed to close the gap by at least 20 kilometers. Again, we've been going at full speed, so it may even have been 50 minutes since you were with me. Certainly coming up to the hour. We're getting closer to where the contact was from, and again, we don't even know for sure it's an enemy contact. All that we know is there was propeller noise somewhere in this area, and he could have been moving in any which direction as well. And so at this point, you know, let's assume he was on our side of the ring and he was heading in our direction. He could almost be right in front of us. If he was on the far side of the ring heading in the other direction, clearly he's still going to be a way off. because, again, we can barely see. Again, here's our radius of clear sight, and the only reason we can even see that far is because it's a clear night, and we've got around half a moon there. So we're going to dunk down. But before we do, and I guess we should have checked it out first, we're going to make use of the snorkel. There we can just about see it let me have my camera. There we go. On the left side of the conning tower. So we'll order the snorkel to be raised up. The order's been given, so we'll have to wait for some guy to start cranking the handle. Somebody inside the boat is going to be sent to do it. And again, it's one of the nice things about this, game. You ask for something to happen. It's not an instantaneous thing. There has to be a crew member available to do it, and then they've got to go do it. Now we can see here, actually taking quite some time. Come on, snorkel. Well, this guy's getting sent to do it. Klaus Thim. I just wonder, why did he not do it before? What's the problem? Do we need to... Can we only do it underwater, or do we need to shut the diesels off first? What's the problem? It used to just go up the side. Well, let's find out. Let's order periscope depth. And we can figure this one out together. So yeah, first thing, clearly the bridge needs to be evacuated, and already underneath you'll have people starting to open and close various valves, ready for when the last guy's down and locks the hatch. And in some cases, later in the war, when things were so desperate, they would have already closed the hatch before the last guy or two. They were so desperate at the end, because again, it was 50-50 if anybody was even going to come home. That, if a guy wasn't quick enough down, perhaps he was over on the end dealing with some washing that was hung off the line or whatever it was. He would get locked out, and it was down to the mercy of the destroyer or whoever it was on the surface to pick him up. And again, there was some unpleasantries that went on in the U-boat on the Navy hunting, and some people say, well, the U-boat people were ruthless. They didn't pick up their survivors. You could only pick up so many, and when it came to the trials, they only had their best defense witnesses. These U-boat captains that were left were the American submarine captains that were doing the same thing in the Pacific, and that's so in other words, if there was any sort of a question as to whether the tactic was legitimate or valid, or whether it was a bit too much, they were the best defense. And by the way, we've got a feather. Look at that feather in the top of the water caused by our periscope. I don't recall this being in this game, so that's nice to see. And this feather, that's what this little white line behind the periscope's called, is what the lookouts were looking for. Because, of course, a U-boat that's completely still, this stick is very hard to see. But when you've got this feather, because the U-boat is traveling through the water at some sort of speed, that is much easier to see than just this little stick. And, of course, that was the giveaway. And so that's, often the first thing that was to be seen, and which is why captains, where possible, they put scope up, have a quick look, bring the scope down, and continue moving around, and then, try and up scope as little as possible for as short as possible. Now, we have had sonar contact, and we can see there on our little display, roughly 255 on the bearing. We'll take a look on the map and see. And so I think it was a good job we dunked down here. We can see we still got a similar area, a circle of confusion, but the circle of confusion appears to be trending in our direction. Of course, that's not a guarantee, but it's a possibility. And if this trend line is at all accurate, we'll move about 5 degrees to the right and try and cut him off. So I'll bring you back again. A little bit of something, a little bit of cat and mouse into even finding some people. And with a solitary ship, I mean, there's a very slight chance it could even be another U-boat. Let's hope not, because we've come all this way. I'll bring you back when we're a little closer. It's currently coming up to 1 a.m. on the 6th of January 1941. There we see it. Snorkel and periscope. Making its way to the target. And of course we couldn't see it, but now we can hear it on hydrophone. Here we are. The time is 1:36 a.m. Approximately 96 minutes have passed since you were last with me, and a ship has been spotted. It's a solitary ship, appears at first glance to be some sort of merchant ship. So we're going to radio off that we've seen it. Of course, with it not being a military ship, there's going to be very little risk that they've got radio finding equipment aboard, much less be able to detect that we have transmitted a message. But it's as brief as that. We're still traveling underwater with the periscope as well as our snorkel. If we take a look on the map view now, we can see the ship is here, unknown still, currently 4.3 kilometers away or so. Now the ship is more or less trending in this direction. So I'm going to order my sub left to around this heading here. Try and get that as perpendicular as we can so we can intercept them. So we're about 3.2 kilometers away from the intercept point, and they're just over 4 and a bit kilometers away from our boat directly. So we'll keep going this way, and I'll bring you back once we get them in sight. We're just about arriving into our intercept position now, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but clearly we've got our snorkel and periscope here. But if you look where my mouse is here, you can see there's a little blob just above a very flat sea. We've got a little bit of moonlight. This is perfect conditions for a U-boat commander to engage, a calm sea. So I think first thing we're going to do is lower the snorkel. That's going to have the engine switch over to battery. We'll keep moving for a bit now, but if anything's going to give our position away, it's going to be that snorkel. We've already got red lighting. I don't see any reason to switch to blue lighting. It's not an engagement where we need to be particularly quiet or maintain oxygen levels for an extended period of time, and the red lighting is going to enable our guys to adjust to the night lighting a bit better. So night engagements, it's always a red lighting versus blue. Of course, there are benefits brought with blue lighting that are lost with the red lighting, even though red lighting is better for the eyes. That's basically the only benefit there. So we're currently on flank speed, which we were using to intercept this guy. I'm going to slow that right down to a creep. And even though it does say here that we've got the diesel selected, the crew are smart enough to know that if we're underwater, to switch over to battery. And as soon as the sub slows down, let's have a look. Does the feather disappear? Well, it's almost gone. And if I move around, now the feather has gone. So how quickly the U-boat slows down when it's underwater. All right, let's take the assistants away from the engineer. He doesn't need them for now. We're almost still. I'm going to give one to the captain for the periscope. And we'll give one to the engineer that's maintaining torpedoes. And that's basically it, I think. And we'll take a look through the scope. So we'll press this one just to align the scope amid. And then we know the boat was approaching us from the right. Let's zoom out first of all, make the turn as quick as possible. And there we see it. So we'll zoom all the way in, and we'll lock that with the TDC. I don't think we need to move forward anymore, so we'll ask our engineers to come to a full stop now. We don't need to creep anywhere at all. The only thing that we do need to do is ID this guy before we decide what we do. So I'm going to bring you back when he's a little closer and we can ID him. Until then. Well, just a few minutes later, the ship finally trundles into range where we're able to ID it. And if we take a look, we've identified here it's a neutral based on the flag, and we see there. We've also got the name. It's the Albula, flying neutral colors. So Legally, we are not allowed to engage neutral shipping. Now, that doesn't stop people flying false flags and, oh, well, you know, it's really a British ship but flying a different coloured flag. That, of course, can and does happen. The only way for us to be sure is basically to say, look, and send a search party in. So that's what we're going to do. And we just hope that we've got a guy available that can speak the language. And so, at this point, that's what we're going to do. Full speed ahead. Let's surface the boat. We're going to turn the searchlight on. We'll have the pump and the compressor on just because we've dived down anyways. And we're going to move to intercept this guy. We'll issue an order to go about 30 or so degrees starboard. We just need to yeah, there we go. We just need to be really close to him otherwise we can't jump across. I've taken the assistance away from my officers and we'll see what we can do in a minute. Somebody finally gets the searchlight powered. So far, this is the first bit of action, if you want to call it that. And I think that's probably close enough. So we'll ask our engineer, stop the engine. Added a bit of a delay for him to respond because, of course, he hears the bell ring. He's got to go to the other side of the engineer's station, see what we say, acknowledge it, then go and turn the engines. And you can increase the response time again by giving him assistance, but we don't have that. But he's glowing up with that searchlight. That's a bright light we've got. And so let's interact. We'll send a delegation over. And again, it's a case of sending our most suitable guys, really. And thankfully, all our officers are available. So certainly we want a French speaker, and we'll certainly arm these. Portuguese speaker. Again, not really sure the Swiss what they want. But and this guy down here, he's got personal skills. So that increases, if you take a look, successive persuasion checks. In other words, you know, he's gives that sense that best not mess with this guy. And in addition to that, he's a navigator, which means if they start lying about where that they're going based on the navigation charts, Rudolf Menzel there is pretty good at picking that up as well. And so we'll give him the helmet and we'll send 6 guys from the ranks with them, and hopefully the language issue is not going to be a problem. Looks like we're almost going to crash into the boat. It's very, very close.
What do you need, officer?
Well, shipping documents, please. They seem to be fake. Right, well, thankfully we've got all the options, and this is due to having this crack team of interrogators on board that can speak the lingo, thankfully. So we'll start off with just making up some claims, and then we'll run down through the experts. And if they falter at any of these 3, we're good to shoot them. So let's start making up the claims. And right away he folds. Brilliant. So we can sink this now without risking an incident. And so let's that's what we're going to do. We could sink it, or we could order the evacuation. I'm not sure. Did we have a... We do have a sapper with us. Great. So let's order the evacuation first. There's our sub. So close to his boat. Of course, with us being armed, they're not really going to have that much say in the matter. We're now going to go inside the deck house, down to the engine room. And we're going to plant the explosives. And, yeah, then we'll hopefully sink the ship in one. We'll see. And here's our guys returning as well. We see the lifeboat. May as well take a look at, can we nab the officers? And so we've got the engineer. We'll take, sometimes, you know, they elect to go down with the ship. And in this case, it looks like the captain maybe did. Yeah, we just had the engineer and that's it. So captain elected to go down with the ship. That's fine. Which is now on its way down, and we'll radio that off. Our first sinking, even though it was done with a sapper, but, you know, they were flying a false flag. They deserve it. And these guys, well, you know, and certainly, you know, if they were like now where we don't desperately have to get away. It's not like there's a destroyer steaming this way and there's an aircraft that's bearing down on us. You know, Reddit, the decent captains, which there were many, would check that nobody was severely injured because, of course, you know, initially they would fight, they would torpedo a boat, right? And then you'd have people abandon ship. You may or may not have some that are severely injured, and they would treat the, you know, with what they could, right? Bandages, give a bit of morphine, whatever, and that was done. Check that they've got some sort of map and compass, because clearly the only way that these guys are going to survive is that they head towards land. Of course, they're going to know roughly where they are. They've been at sea for weeks. They're going to have a vague idea where they are. They'll have a sextant on board anyway in the lifeboat, you know, just basic survival equipment, you know, some rations and food. It's not going to be a lot, but it's going to be enough to keep them going for a few days. And, you know, obviously if the weather's horrific, I mean, what do? You can't fit everybody on a sub, but certainly the weather here not being horrific, there's a chance. Now let's have a look. Where are they? Well, I say there's a chance. They've got along. Actually, no, it's not too unrealistic. Let's have a look. 700 kilometers. So we're talking 700 and some, so about 500 miles between them. I think with a little bit of effort and a lot of luck, and if they ration out the supplies and take turns, it can be done. And again, there are stories of crews, you know, rowing hundreds of miles as they would have to do here. And, you know, and 3, 4, 5 days later, they turn up. Obviously, they're a little thirsty when they turn up. They've probably gone through most of their, if not all of their rations by that point. But yeah, and not just, you know, and the boats sometimes become separated at night, especially when it gets choppy and they can't see each other. And then, like, you know, and it turns out, 2 or 3 days later, somebody turns up at some other island, and eventually, you know, they're all back together for the hearing. And there's always a hearing as to what happened, and, you know, who did what and when. And that's interesting as well. If you've never looked into that sort of thing, it's not like, the boat sunk, that's it, forget about it. There's a whole, like, every time, like, an inquiry onto it and how it happened and statements from everyone. It's interesting stuff. All right, that's our first ship done. Let's continue. So we're leaving our area, and I'm going to move more towards the center of the sector. Then we'll have another dunk down and listen. I'm just clearing off our markings that we've left that were to do with dealing with this ship. What I am going to leave is this little circle, and that's because we know that there's at least 2 lifeboats in that immediate area. And if we dunk down, there's a chance that we can hear the water and whatnot sloshing up against it. We don't want to get confused and think that we've got contact, potentially 2 down there, and start racing towards it. Now, that range is only going to go so far, but, you know, we've got a better hydrophone, and if we're within the area, either in an hour or 2, or maybe in a day or 2 when we double back round or whatever it is, again, we don't want to forget exactly where that took place, just in case we get confuddled. And so that little tidbit there. And I'll see you when we next pick something up on sonar. And of course, by sonar, I mean the hydrophone. We've just gone down on a routine dive. It's the 6th of January, 2 in the afternoon. So we've covered quite a long distance since our last action there, just over 300 kilometers. We're about 50% of the way up north. And yeah, again, on the routine dive, we were continuing north. We see this guy over here. So first thing we're going to do is swing around. And second thing, we'll plot him He's in that area, not too far away as it would happen. What we're looking at here, potentially 50 kilometers or so. In fact, before we immediately give the order to surface, he may be close enough that we can see a trend. And so I'm going to do something that may ruin the immersion for some, but that is to compress time a little bit. All that this means is every 12 seconds that you see or rather every 1 second you see is 12 seconds in the game. Or if I press this one, every 1 second you see is 48 seconds in the game. And that's just so that we're not clearly playing the game for weeks and weeks for every patrol. And so let's go to 48 seconds. And I'm not sure if you saw that, but there was clearly a trend to this way. Sounds like our guys are very happy about it. I'll bring you back when we're a little closer. We're well on the way now, and it's a nice, clear, sunny day. We've been very lucky with the seas, full flank speed, and we've even got somebody on the gun. We've got quite a lot of crew topside, keeping an eye on what's going on. Hopefully we can spot this guy soon. And yeah, we'll have to see. Potentially we'll give this guy some target practice. We'll give him a couple of assistants to help with reloading the gun and so on. And until then, our crew there can keep a lookout, and hopefully we'll spot this guy soon enough. Dunking down for a little update on the situation. We're at periscope depth, still giving it flank speed, although we are on the electric motors. Coming over to the map view now, we can see a little time has passed, and indeed it would seem that our contact is continuing to trend in a northeasterly direction. Still a ways away, and yeah, we didn't see him at all topside, but we certainly can hear him better than we can see. It would seem that potentially he's around 36 kilometers away, give or take around 15, 16 on top of that. So potentially 30, potentially 50. I think we'll come a couple of degrees there to the left. We'll go back surface, we'll go flank speed. We'll make sure everybody is on the lookout on top, and I'm sure we'll run into him soon, and I'll bring you back at such time. Well, after some time later, I was starting to get a little bit nervous. Our lookouts finally spot some smoke over on the horizon. We can see it's actually even further to the east than our trend line had anticipated. So potentially heading more like this. We'll have to see if that's the case, but for now, let's just report the fact that we have seen the smoke, and we'll take a look ourselves. We'll grab the binos here belonging to the captain. We'll take a look to the right, and there can just about make something out. Not sure if that's obvious on the stream, but if we zoom in, perhaps if I move it side to side, you can see there's a slight discoloration on the horizon there. It's sort of a blue, and in fact if I move the mouse over, it's already offering me the ability, or at least temporarily the ability there to get a lock, but clearly far too far away to start getting a lock. Perhaps, yeah, it's becoming a little clearer now in the middle of it. You can start, if you look at it, if you catch it just right, you can see like a puff of smoke. I wonder if changing the lens coverings at all will make it any clearer. Perhaps a little clearer on that one, certainly as I see it. All right, well, it's 55 degrees or so to starboard, so we'll give it, what we'll give it, I don't know, let's go 40 some, and we'll move to intercept, and I'll bring you back. I don't know, let's have a little look, actually. Let's have a look on the map. So yeah, we're there, he's here, we know he is heading in this direction. We've just moved to intercept, perhaps a little, perhaps we steered a little too much. I'm thinking if he's heading this way, we should move along parallel with him, ID him as soon as possible, but keep out of his range. Hopefully we can do that somewhere around here. Yeah, so if we can ID him, I don't know, somewhere around here, hopefully, we'll get as close as we can. If we have to get a little too close to ID him, we may have to pull back then a little further. We'll then flank speed along parallel We'll move in over here somewhere and we'll aim to cut him off and sink him here. Again, if we ID him and he's a friendly, clearly we leave him alone. And if he's a neutral flag after IDing him, we'll just make a beeline for him and send another search party. Hopefully that'll go as well as last time. Well, he's in range and the alarm has been rung by the crew. That to me suggests somebody with sharp eyesight reckons those flags are potentially hostile. There we can see the alarm has been rung. And I'm thinking we're in a slight pursuit here. We're not hot on. And we're certainly not perpendicular, which is going to make it very hard for us to catch up with him, certainly if we go underwater. So I don't want to get any closer. So we'll go 45 degrees port side. That should put us about parallel. And although he's in clear sight, that's because we've got a lot of people on duty right now. I'll give a couple of assistants here as well. That should give us a slight range increase as well as improve some of the capabilities. And there we see it is indeed hostile. The ship there belonging to Canada, which of course is basically the UK at this period in time. Yeah, so my plan now, as said before, is to track along parallel and we'll move to cut off, and it is going to be more or less where we plan. So I'll bring you when we're there. You join us a short while later. We flanked up ahead. We're now 45 degrees astern, or rather a bow ahead. Bow is the front, of course, the stern's the back. Yeah, so we're moving to cut him off. He's still unawares that we're here, which is, you know, what we want. We don't want him to start dodging. And because we know that this guy's hostile, we will be taking a shot. So we're going to dunk down now to periscope depth. I'm going to try and get the snorkel out. Does our guy raise the snorkel even though that we're not underwater? He didn't seem to last time, but we've given the order together with the order to dive to periscope depth. And there now goes the snorkel. Nice to see. So it would appear that it is in some way related to the diving down, and you can't just have the snorkel for the sake of it, which I don't know why. I used to ride around with the snorkel up. Does produce more smoke than just letting the diesels expel their exhaust out the back, but in any case, this is going to allow us to pursue the target with the diesels a little longer. Of course, the diesels can drive the sub faster underwater as well as up top than the electrics. Now, will this smoke give our position away? It will. So we can't use it indefinitely. So when we get a little closer, we'll have to get rid of that as well. Until then, this guy on the here, Menzel's our most junior officer. I mean, it is a well-trained, well-seasoned crew. But yeah, we'll let Menzel have a stab. So we'll give him an assist there. Another assist on the command station. And this guy is the engineer, is currently covering the radio, is Hoffman, and Weber is currently on damage party control, but each of these should be dealing with the torpedoes as and when required. In fact, I think I'm going to get Horst just to perform maintenance on Tube 1. We'll give him an assist there. That's going to help him do it even quicker. And then we'll use Tube 1 to go for this guy. Our first torpedo launch of the patrol. So taking a look through the periscope now, we're really getting quite close to this guy. So I'm going to issue the order to lower the snorkel. Should have perhaps already done that. We'll raise the scope just slightly to stay above the waves. There we go. The change to the electrics. We hear the difference that makes. And then we're going to issue, let's just go slow speed. To reduce the periscope feather. Hopefully he's not seen us. Let's zoom in a little bit. And the periscope's got 3 levels of zoom. That's fully zoomed in. And let's see if we can start locking him into the TDC. And indeed we can. We can see there's some of the waves temporarily blocking our view, but that's fine. I think we can make this work. Now, before we get any sort of speed measurements, ideally we do need to stop. And this merchant ship, very distinctive with the 2 vertical poles on the very back. Now, when we see it on the side profile, it'll seem like just one big vertical pole, but of course that's because we're viewing this guy in 3 dimensions and he's offset, whereas the silhouette's just 2. And it's this one here, the Empire Tower. These are, this pole here is one of these, and again, as we see there too. If this was a 3D image, it would show us 2 as well, so we'll recognize that. We need to get an idea on speed. Now, usually these guys cruise around at about 12 kilometers an hour, sometimes 11, sometimes 13, so usually 12. To get an accurate read, first off, we need to be completely stopped, and secondly, this guy needs to be a little bit closer to the front of us, so he can't be like 60 odd degrees off to one side. Will not get the most accurate reading in the world. So I'll bring you back when he's, I don't know, inside like 40 degrees, something like that. Alrighty then, so just a few minutes later, the ship has trundled. It's almost there. It's certainly inside 45 degrees. So we're going to get a measurement on his speed. And so the way this is done, assuming that we're still in the water, which we are, we're going to line up the scope with the front or the bow of his ship. And we'll then we'll stop tracking him. We'll just keep the scope deadly still, and we'll allow the ship to drift on through. And we'll measure how long does it take between the front and the back of the ship. Of course, we know how long the ship is because we've already identified the ship. It's the Empire Tower, 3,015 tons. And so let's get ready to do that. And then, if we know how long it is and we know how long it took to get or to travel its entire length, from that we can work out the ship's speed. And then from there we can start programming our torpedoes, which of course were, very rudimentary sort of a computer. It's all mechanical, but to be able to program torpedoes, and you'd put in the ship's speed, the heading, the angle on bow, the distance. It's clever stuff. So we'll stop the clock there, we'll set that, and that gives a speed that's been estimated to be 13 kilometers an hour. Now we need to figure out his angle on bow. Well, hopefully this ship, has these masts with these 2 rods that hang off at 45 degrees. We can see we're behind those, so we know we're well past 45, although we can still see the front-facing windows. So we know we're certainly not past 90 degrees, nor would we want to be. So we're somewhere between 45 and 90. So now it's just a matter of, a bit of skill and how much have you played this game, and, how good are you visually perceiving an angle on the bow. Well, again, if this mast here was perfectly in line with this post, we'd know it'd be bang on 45. If we were not able to see any of the front of the boat, and we see here these windows, or any of the back, we'd know we'd be bang on 90. To me, looks like we're nearer the 45 than the 90, so I'm going to go on an angle on bow here. There's something like 16. Clearly, if we imagine ourselves stood on the middle of the enemy boat looking towards our sub, that's where this heading comes from. Again, so we're right in the middle. Imagine we're stood there and we're trying to look for where we are. In my opinion, it's about 60. We know we're past 45. We know it can't be 90. I'm going to go with about 60 degrees. Perhaps in all that time I've been waffling, it's a bit more like 65. So let's go with that. We've got the speed. Let's work out the distance. Now again, we've ID'd the ship, so we know how tall the ship is. And so we're going to measure the distance between the ship's waterline and the highest mast. So we're going to temporarily raise our scope to do this, get it as accurate. We're on the waterline. And so I'm going to split... where are we here? No, that was a mistake. Let me do that again. Split it. There we go. So we're going to move the split image again, the waterline, right up to the highest mast, which is about there. We'll set that, and it reckons this ship is about 2 kilometers away, which is quite a long distance. And for 2 kilometers, we're about shooting parameters now. You don't want to wait until he's dead ahead, because then the torpedo's going to have to play catch up, because it's going to have to go after the ship. And so I think this is about as good as we're going to get. So I'm just going to check my periscope. is aligned with the middle of the target, which is basically this tall chimney, as near as damn it. And I'm going to fire... we'll fire one torpedo. Now here we've got the fat settings, and so if it misses, well, it needs to be more than 1920, because again, we reckon the ship's about 2 kilometers. So I'm actually going to go for 2030 and a left-hander. So if it misses at that distance, let's even add another 100 meters on. It's then going to double around to the left-hand side, and hopefully we'll get a contact on the other side. In fact, let's go to 2030. We'll go with that. Let's fire.
Los!
Being one of the electric torpedoes, it can't go any faster than 56, but also being electric, it's going to be less likely to be discovered. Certainly one that you'd want to use if you're inside a massive convoy with destroyers and you're trying to remain stealthy for as long as possible. Clearly, when the first torpedo goes bang, any stealth that had any benefit is gone at that point, and all the others know that you're there. But for surprise attacks, we see it's inside 20 degrees now. And we can see here that the forward angle here of the boat now getting very close. So the angle on bow getting close to 90 degrees. You can still see a little bit of the front of the boat. So, you know, you could say it's 80, 85, 89, but we know it's not 90. Of course, another clue might be that these two rods line up if we view it exactly from the side profile. And the same, of course, with these two rods at the back, you know, and then it's going to look exactly like the silhouette that we've got. Yeah, so a nerve-wracking time for the crew.
Torpedo ist auf halbem Weg zum Ziel.
Everybody's going to be looking at the stopwatch or some sort of other means of, you know, is it nearly there yet? I'm sure people somewhere laying down bets. Will it hit? Will it miss? And of course, for a solitary torpedo, there's never always a guarantee. We could look on sonar. You know, he's the hydrophone operator. Every time I say sonar, I mean hydrophone. I mix it up all the time. The hydrophone guy has clearly got, you know, some information. Does the torpedo sound like it's running well? Does it appear to be on course? It's not going erratic.
30 Sekunden.
Of course, he can hear the ship as well. He can check that they're more or less, you know, in the right direction. You know, if one's going one way and one's going the other way, you know, he's going to know before anyone else that it's missed. According to the guy with the clock, he reckons 20 seconds.
Treffer.
And there's the hit.
Feuer an Deck.
Bright flash, so slightly behind the middle of target. So, you know, whether we slightly misjudged the distance or the speed, but clearly it was not enough to make a problem. We see there the ship's caught fire and starting to damage. That damage will increase depending on whether the fire spreads or whether there's a hole torn into the side of the boat that's going to start flooding. Either way, I'm not going to waste another torpedo on it. We're going to race towards it, whether it sinks or whether we need to finish it off with a deck gun. Let's go. Full speed ahead. Surface the boat. See this guy already reloading the torpedo tube. As we've got 4 tubes and then a few torpedoes in the forward room. And of course, every torpedo we fire off frees up more bunk beds that allow crew to have a little more space of their own. Until then, everybody's hot bunking, apart from the officers. They're the only ones that don't need to hot bunk. Although that said, I do think on a full complement, there are at least a couple that have to. We can see there's some smoke pouring off the boat. It's a weird sort of a sky today. It's not entirely blue. It's not entirely overcast either, because we can see the sun. It's that weird sort of haze, but making it quite difficult to spot this guy. But we can certainly see he's burning. And there we go. We've managed to sink the boat, and with it, our objective is complete. We've registered a total of 7,000 tons or more. We'll certainly radio that success off, and with that is going to be the end of the first part of this episode. I hope to see you again to join us for the second and final part of this patrol. Until then, take care. Somewhere from the Atlantic on the 6th of January 1941. Bye-bye.